quick is that
Yeah.
I didn't have anything at all that was in front of me except the bare bones information that was in the
Oh
first
yeah.
press release.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I had nothing else to say except, oh, by the way, it's longer than Lord of the Rings is. That's all I could grasp because
Yeah.
I had 20 seconds to say something about it and then we were done.
I
There you
have
go.
I've scored a whole table of contents.
Oh, good.
Well, there is
You've
so
gotten,
much going on this week. We couldn't wait to start without you, the audience. So hello everybody. Welcome to Torn Tuesday, your weekly dose of all things Lord of the Rings, Hobbity, Rings of Power, goodness, movies, games, books, trivia, poetry, and everything in between. Of course, conventions. We are on episode 655, and while our friends here are still setting up, that's Clifford Broadway in the corner, the producer and co-writer of Ringers, Lord of the Fans, the award-winning documentary on Tolkien fandom, and I'm joined right here by Mad Eye Gamgee. Jim Wirt is on the scene in Atlanta prepping
Art.
for DragonCon.
It is Dragon Con week.
how exciting. I love Dragon Con week. I wish I
Really?
was there with you guys.
I don't think Justin, you've never been to Dragon Con, have you?
Oh, yes, he has. Oh, yes.
Oh, we did.
It's
We
just
did
been,
the Road to DragonCon.
Oh, okay.
And that was fun. In fact, hey, if there's any Tolkien licensees that ever want to sponsor a road trip across America, we're happy to oblige. And vice versa. Jim, would you do a road to San Diego, road trip to San Diego?
I can squeeze it into my calendar. Yeah. Sure.
We were just talking a little bit about that offline, how those memories of meeting up with fans in cities around the country, big and small. Sometimes we had a private lunch with just one person, and sometimes there was a whole group of 30 people. It's so wonderful to connect with all of you watching and everybody at home, and just put a face to fandom. And that's one of the reasons why the OneRing.net is still going strong. It's you, the community.
Absolutely.
Well, Jim, let's not
indeed.
bury the lead, because DragonCon is this week, and you're wearing one of the announcements today.
Well,
oh,
yes.
hello.
It's the Dragon Con version of the shirt we did for San Diego, except we put "You Haven't Aged a Day" on the front, and we put our Torn 25th anniversary logo on the sleeve.
Oh, how cool.
Printed them up, and we will have those. Torn has a fan booth at Dragon Con, faithfully womaned by Green Dragon. Kristen
Yes.
and Deej, Rebecca Perry are our regulars. They often get some folks to help them because they're also active and doing panels and things here at Dragon Con. But we will have that panel. We'll have shirts, this design, and I think at least two or three others.
And also,
That
we made more of these, but
we did.
in blue, I believe, right? Navy blue.
Yeah, it's a blue shirt, and those Gollum Smeagol 2024 shirts went very quickly in San Diego.
That's right.
So
Oh, so this is a nice new burgundy version of that shirt design. How
It'll
lovely.
be navy blue. I have
It'll
a
be navy
burgundy
blue.
Gollum is
test.
navy blue.
Oh,
Got
Yeah.
this reddish burgundy one for our "You Haven't Aged a Day."
And
wow.
then, of course, I think we're getting some leftover patches from Comic-Con
that's
here.
King's Wild patches that they've been selling. We'll have actually a few card decks that we can sell at our table, and so we'll have an array of things that will be.
That's very cool. Torn Tuesday audience, if you don't know, I want to tell you guys because I have beat the humidity, just like you year after year. Jim, you and Kirsten and Deej have to beat the humidity, but it's so worth it. The experience of having a convention spread out over multiple hotels, the wild experiences at night with the music, the dancing, the parties, the energy. Dragon Con is really something else, and it is not to be missed. So if you get a chance and you're down there in the southeastern states, go on down there. Have a great time, you guys. It's going to be wonderful.
Jim, the chat room. I don't know if this is true. Jim, the chat room is saying that Elijah, Dominic, and Billy are going to be there.
Yes. So
Yes.
we do have 3 of the 4 hobbits. I actually talked to Sean Astin when we were all in San Diego and found out that it was not on his calendar. I suspect he has other things
He's
that are
on
going
he's
on.
on the campaign trail with
That's
Kamala
right.
Harris.
So
He's on
that's
the campaign trail. Wow.
got him busy. But who's not on the campaign trail is indeed Frodo, Merry, and Pippin. We'll have Billy Boyd with us on the entire Dragon Con weekend. So that goes from, it really starts up on this Thursday and it will go all the way through kind of midday on Labor Day Monday. So Billy will be there the entire time. Dominic and Elijah will just be there on Saturday, Sunday, and they'll have some panels. All of them will have panels. They'll have signing opportunities, photo opportunities. So, yeah, this is the second year in a row now that we've had some great Lord of the Rings talent. So we went for it. It was a dry spell for a while, but we're finally getting some back. I think Elijah was first time he came was last year.
Well,
And I guess,
3 years, because if I recall correctly, 2022,
yeah.
John Howe showed up.
Yes, he did as part of the Rings of
Mm.
John Howe and Leif McPherson both came really at the great generosity of Prime Video, and we kind of were able to get them in and had a great panel to talk about the making of the Rings of Power. So that was really good.
Well,
That is
let's.
so super cool.
So, has Prime Video hooked you guys up in any way this time? Because it's launch week for the new show.
Here's the announcement. A lot of you already know that there are watch parties around the country in theaters, but those tickets went really fast for many locations. So this is a bit of an announcement. It's kind of getting out there, but just now,
Breaking news. Breaking news.
We will have a watch party in one of the larger hotel ballrooms, which is where Dragon Con happens. So we'll have enough space for 400 or so at least. Folks, if they want to come and see the first 3 episodes, we've arranged the agreement with Prime Video to let us show those. We've got a special, we hope, stable internet link inside of a downtown Atlanta hotel, so we can stream these things and watch them on your favorite friends. So we will be having that screening party starting at 7 p.m. on Thursday night. So the day that all these episodes drop, or at least the first 3.
Do you need a badge to get? Do you need to already have a Dragon Con badge to get in on Thursday night?
Yeah, to get into any Dragon Con thing, you do need to have your Dragon Con badge. You can buy day passes. I don't know if they're selling Thursday day passes or not, but for anybody who's got a badge, they can get into the hotels. And once you're in, you can go to any Dragon Con panels and tracks and the vendor artist alley, all that stuff. So it's open. You just have to be able to get into the room. So we'll see how popular it is.
That's incredible. Dragon Con, people in chat were asking, how does it compare to San Diego Comic-Con as far as size?
Oh, it's very different.
Yeah.
It's very different. The reason why it is so different is because people are, it's obvious just to say a lot of people are in different rooms, but they really are. They're in different hotels. They're in different rooms, and there is no single massive Hall H experience.
Yep.
And there isn't that kind of, it's not the merchandise centric experience that I always say San Diego makes itself out to be.
Yep.
Much more merchandise centric in San Diego. The Atlanta experience is, how would you describe it, Jim?
Dragon Con describes it as a convention by the fans for the fans.
Mm-hmm. Well, hey, we describe our own website like that for 25 years.
So it's very resonant with the One Ring mojo. So at the core of Dragon Con, or I don't know, there's probably 25 or 30 specific fan-focused, we call them tracks. So if you're into British science fiction and fantasy, the Brit track is for you, or Star Trek or Star Wars or science fiction generally. Tolkien used to have its own track, the Tolkien's Middle Earth track, which has now been combined into something we call high fantasy. And so we've got Tolkien, we've got the Game of Thrones Westeros world, we've got Witcher, we've got the Wheel of Time uh, arena, and then lots of other kind of
And
high fantasy. If you think of a story that has dragons in it,
they would definitely include Ursula K. Le Guin
sure.
and other things like that in that high fantasy track. Right.
So that's an example, and that's where our Tolkien fans will live. So we'll have over the course of those 4 days, probably, well, 7 or 8 focused Tolkien particular panels. And then we'll also have an array of things that are Tolkien friendly. So as you guys will remember, one of our big events is a dance party on the very first full Friday night evening.
Boy.
And we'll have 3 live bands and dancing and lots of people dressed and a costume contest and an elf choir and just lots of that meeting old friends.
Love that. I love that. That's the best part. I remember it so well.
Yeah. So that'll be one of the things. We have a group called the Brobdingnagian Bards who have been playing at Dragon Con for years and years and have a particular fondness for Hobbit music. So we have an annual panel that's called Hobbit Drinking Songs. That's usually on Sunday night, and it is a raucous and happy event with people dancing in the aisles. And
do you know how very, very much I remember Emerald Rose and all those evenings at Breeze? In fact, every week, or almost every week, we have members from Emerald Rose who come right here into our chat with us for a Torn Tuesday experience. They're here. And I'm looking right now to see if one of them is here in the chat right now.
And I guess the biggest difference that DragonCon is to almost every other convention is it really is a social atmosphere. The convention takes place in a series of hotels that are all connected by tunnels. You literally don't ever have to touch a sidewalk. You are staying in a hotel, and then you move to another hotel through a tunnel. All the convention rooms are in different hotels. All the party rooms are in the hotels. The rooms can be big. There's a 24-hour rave going on with DJs and lasers, so you can finish. There's panels at midnight because a lot of creative people are just night owls. So they have actual content, panel content, all night long, and the lobby bars become cosplay showcases where people. I mean, it's one of the most cosplayed conventions ever, and it is a nonstop party, and it's just so much more social than any other convention. It's hard to describe.
Yeah, that is a hotel. That's what I noticed. I went to San Diego Comic-Con for the first time this year, and I finally did find some spots around the downtown convention hall area that were buzzing somewhat, but the hotels were not. In fact, we were at one spot, and they told us that they were closing down not only the food but the bar at 10 p.m. And if that happened at Dragon Con,
it'd be a riot.
It would be impossible. So, like you said, it is. If you like that constant party environment, you will find it. If you like diving into anachronistic history or science skepticism or singing in folk music circles or anime or playing tabletop games or video games or pinball games or you can find it's impossible to see all of that DragonCon offers because it's just such an abundance. So you really do have to pick and choose and manage what you're going to focus on.
That is such a great way to describe it, Justin, the way you did. The hotel lobbies, which usually have a bar, but the hotel lobbies become these nexus points. Nexus points for cosplayers and people who are partying, and the energy of the dancing and the music and the partying goes on constantly all around you. There's that energy. Comic-Con does not have that. They've traded that in for, go to Petco Park, for fireworks and drone show
Not even. They've
experience.
traded it in for ticketed
That's something
events,
else.
and you have to be on the list, and you have to plan, and
Yep.
you have to get on the list. Like, but
And then you
Comic-Con
have
has
to get on the
become
lottery to
private
get
party.
access. Yeah.
Lotteries to get access, and
Yeah.
we're as guilty as well. Like Torn has to ticket
Well,
all
I
of
didn't
our
say that,
events
but
because it gets
yes.
insane.
Yeah.
We try to
Yeah.
keep the tickets cheap or free, but you know, based on the sponsorship we get. But that's what Comic-Con has become. Dragon Con, once you have a Dragon Con ticket, it is a 24-hour party, and Jim here may not look like a party boy, but you better believe he's in charge of Dragon Con for a reason.
Yeah, we have a great time. Great time.
Well,
Indeed.
we have a ton of news. This might be a long show. We have a ton of news to go into because this is the launch week for Rings of Power Season 2, and we just got the first trailer for Rohirrim Season 1, or for the Rohirrim movie. So maybe we should just get Rohirrim out of the way first because there's so much Rings of Power news to go. We'll just touch on it. We're not gonna play the trailer because we'll get copyright clipped like we did on Friday. But Jim, you joined us to look at the trailer. Your thoughts on the Rohirrim anime trailer that we saw?
Yeah. So I liked them. I have not historically been a big anime person, and I've been reading some of the comments that if you're not a native to that, that it may be a little bit jarring. For many others, it's really great to be back in an animated version of The Lord of the Rings because you can do lots of things. And I've read a lot of stuff that really like the Japanese version of the trailer, even more than the English version of the trailer. And they're different cuts. And so I'm hearing a lot of excitement building up around them. Personally, I just love being back in the universe, and I love being able to experience someone else's vision. If you think about the old when we were 10, 12 years ago, and thinking about the Hobbit movie, and thinking, man, Guillermo del Toro is really going to show us something different here. And so it's not Guillermo del Toro, but it is something different. It's a different lens. While at the same time, there are lots of things like that throne that Theoden is sitting on is a replica of what we saw in the movie. And so there are a lot of reference points that will make fans of the movies really happy while it's still telling a different story. And we're starting to see those kinds of things and a few other hints, like in the Japanese trailer, finding out that a certain canonical wizard does show up, as he should, at the end of the I don't know, I'm assuming it's at the end of the movie. So
that's great.
So cool.
Cliff, we unfortunately you couldn't join us because your real life precluded you, but the chat room was begging for your opinion on the Rohirrim trailer, both the American and the Japanese version.
Yes. Wildly enthusiastic, really buzzworthy, and there are again, I think that the immediate mental connections to Castlevania do come to mind again. It was wonderful character design. I was waiting for this for many years. How many times has the Earth gone around the sun? Where I've been wondering, gosh, I want to see these character designs, and here they are. I'm with Katie. I know, Katie, you're with us. Roak here from Prancing Pony Podcast here in the live chat. But what I saw with the trailer, doubled up with the wonderful exclusive that we showed at San Diego Comic-Con, it did remind me of the very opening sequence of Miyazaki's darkest and angriest film called Princess Mononoke. And then there's an opening sequence. A giant boar god has been inflamed with demonic possession, and it bursts through the underbrush and the woods, attacking several individuals on screen, one of whom will be our protagonist for the entire feature film. And as our lead character, Hera, is facing off this giant Mumakil, a Mumakil that seems to be much in the same way that the boar god was being driven mad by possession. The Mumakil seems to be driven mad by, who knows, maybe it's rabies, maybe it is just battle wounded and infuriated and frenzied. And in the shots where she is trying to save people by leading the beast away so it doesn't attack everyone, it is a striking beat for beat show performance of that famous opening scene that Miyazaki had crafted so meticulously all those years ago in Princess Mononoke. But the character designs, absolute winners. Blue ribbon, first place. You win, Kenji Kamiyama, and your wonderful designers. Your character designs are amazing. That Japanese trailer, I think, reveals a bit much more than it should have. Couple of big surprises in there, but I am so curious about how the Watcher in the Water is going to be brought into the story, as I know very well the story from the appendix itself about the marriage proposal and Wolf from Dunland and the martial conflict. The martial aspects of the story are very well noted in the appendices. So I'm just excited to see our storytellers flesh out all the other bones of the story and all the other bits and pieces that will make it a larger scope story. Absolutely fascinated by this. It's interesting, isn't it?
Like...
My final point is that it is a remarkable bit of counter programming to all of the energy and buzz that the Rings of Power has. Here's the Rings of Power, just a couple of days away from their big season 2, and Warner Brothers is like, checkmate, we're going to bring in some counter programming with the same marketing, but for a different product. And I thought that was a very interesting choice. Very interesting.
Does this feel like a great bridge between the Japanese animated Hobbit cartoons that we love from years past and the Peter Jackson movies, and then bringing both of those pieces of the past forward into a new future that we're in?
Yeah, I do. I think this is actually a bridge forward. It doesn't really look or feel like the wonderful Japanese animated work that was produced by Arthur Rankin Jr. and Jules Bass. It doesn't look like that at all. It's all in the character designs. This is way more visceral and realistic. And there is no, there's a lot of abstraction going on in the character designs from the Rankin Bass animated stuff. But a lot of very different character designs. Rankin and Bass has more in common with Thundercats character design, because they did use some of the same animators and character designers went on to make Silverhawks and Thundercats, and that's why the designs look like that. But right now, this modern, brand new stuff from Kamiyama and his team, I think it is a bridge forward, but it does really belong in the same wheelhouse, and it does fit. It completely fits. And I love arguing and bitching online with, I'm not crabby about it, but I like to playfully argue with people online that you might be disappointed, as they say, oh, I was disappointed it's an anime, or, oh, I can't really get into it because it's an anime. Whenever I hear that, and it's rare to hear that, but my immediate response is, oh, we are perfectly within the wheelhouse of where we were in 1977 with Japanese animation telling us the story. I think it's excellent to be where we are, and I am encouraged all the way around. I'm really encouraged. So watch this space and see what more marketing happens before the December release. Watch what happens next.
And we theorized, and you can watch the playback on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/theoneringnet. In our analysis of this trailer, we theorize that the voice of this orc that's picking up rings could be the voice of Dominic Monaghan.
Who's coming to Dragon Con, by the way? We can ask him.
He has been hinting. He's dropping weird hints that he got to do a little side voice in the movie. That's so cool, though.
Yes. The actor who voiced Merry in The Lord of the Rings is also voicing this, I think it's an orc character who's collecting rings that you see in the trailer. And I think that's where the reference is coming. That he's saying he's glad to be back and being the voice of Dominic Monaghan again. So
Now in the chat, Otaku Senpai is asking me if I see more parallels between the lead character Hera, more similar to Miyazaki's heroine Nausicaa, or San. And I have to say, and these are two different characters from two different Miyazaki movies, but it's Nausicaa. Yeah, Katie was right the whole time. There is a strong resemblance to the action on the field, looking like the opening of Princess Mononoke, but as a character herself, Hera has classic Nausicaa of the Valley of the Wind written all over her. Really classic. With the big difference is that she's probably not a character involved in a major prophecy to bring healing to the world. That might be the key component to remove from that analog. But yeah, I think Hera is definitely in the wheelhouse of classic Miyazaki heroines. Top tier.
On our Discord, which has been on fire for the last month since Comic-Con, I did a poll asking, should Warner Brothers release the Japanese subtitled or the Japanese version of The War of the Rohirrim in U.S. cinemas? Before I tell you the answer, overwhelming answer, let me ask you guys, Jim, first. Do you think they should release both the English dub and the Japanese version in US?
I think it will speak to different markets, and I think speaking to different markets is a good idea. So if they can get theaters to be available and to do those releases, sure, why not? But even in the trailers, you can see a very different approach. In the Japanese trailer, we jump right in to the anime. In the US trailer, we spent a lot of establishment time relative to the percentage of the whole trailer, literally getting some old Lord of the Rings 2001, 2002 clips that then get integrated. So for the US market generally, it seems like the inclination is let's connect the dots. Let's create a thread of familiarity that will then kind of bridge over and let people enjoy this new orientation toward how we're going to tell this story. So I think there's a lot of US market that's going to be available for the movie that's not necessarily as big into being able to parse all of the anime allusions and references and resonances that you guys even are doing. And I think Warner Brothers absolutely wants to reach that larger mass market, as well as those who are really enthused by that.
Now, as a distributor of all of Studio Ghibli's films, G-Kids has made a very, very specific point at doing dual language releases every single time they do it. They do it annually with their Ghibli Fest, and they do it with all brand new releases. They will have theaters on the same day have separated even and odd showings, some in Japanese with subtitles, others brand new English dub. And G-Kids has probably experienced a great benefit as a distributor with the success of that pattern. It is a good idea, perhaps, but it remains to be seen if Warner Brothers Discovery will match that release pattern when they distribute it worldwide. I wonder.
Cliff,
I wonder.
I want your opinion, Cliff, because according to our Discord, 78% of our Discord said yes, absolutely, release the Japanese version the same day as the American version in the American market. Cliff, is that what you want?
Yes. Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do want that, but I wonder if it's going to I really wonder if it's going to happen. Will Warner Brothers identify the need? Because I say yes, absolutely. It'd be fantastic to have that. But we'll see. We'll see if that happens. Here's the question. What do you think? Is this an actual Japanese film with its origin language having always been Japanese? Is that the way it is? And are we here in North America, Canada, Are we just the North American marketplace getting the localization for our country? We'll have to ask, why don't we get the producers on here for an interview sometime soon? And we will ask them if that is actually
I
how
have
they're
a
going to do
pretty
that.
good idea because the script was written in New Zealand in the Queen's English, King's
Yes.
English. So
Okay. Okay.
Cliff, here's another Dragon Con exclusive.
Ooh,
We're gonna
okay.
have a panel on the War of the Rohirrim. Initially, we had been hoping to get Jason DeMarco to join us on that
Right.
panel. He was there in San Diego, and we were going to dedicate the whole hour to War of the Rohirrim. Somehow, apparently, Jason got busy. He's like involved in the editing of some movie in New Zealand, so he is not going to be at Dragon Con. But our great heroic friend and heroine Green Dragon had a half-hour interview with him. So we will be airing that producer interview as part of our panel here coming up on Friday. So
Excellent.
I don't know. I don't know that we'll have to decide if and how we could make that available. Not sure it will be, but for those coming to Dragon Con, you'll be able to hear it.
Excellent.
and at Toronto Film Fest, Toronto Comic Con this last weekend, they had a huge booth, and they were giving away posters. They were giving away the posters and pins that we gave away at our panel up in Toronto. Let me see if I can rotate this. It showed up wrong. But fans that visited the Rohirrim booth got a poster of Rohan and 3 enamel pins.
Ooh, cool.
We may have some things in Atlanta too. We'll see.
I love it.
We're full of teases today.
That's so great, though. That's really exciting.
Well, so Rohirrim comes out this December. The teaser trailer came unexpected. No one expected it to be released last Thursday. And it has shaken everybody to its core, and it looks fantastic. And just for kicks, let's take a look at War of the Rohirrim. Let's see how many views it got since Thursday. 19 million views. No, turn that off.
Whoa.
It's at
Whoa.
19 million views on
Wow.
YouTube in less than a week. 19 million views. That's incredible. Congratulations to the entire crew that have been working hard on this in secret for the last 4 or 5 years.
Congratulations to Jason DeMarco and the American team, and Kenji Kamiyama and the Japanese team. It really feels like we're back in the heyday of 70s, early adaptations of Tolkien, which were done as a bi-coastal dual country effort between a production team and an animation team in 2 different continents. It's really exciting. Really well done.
Yes, it is. Well, let's move on to the big news of the week, I guess. Unless there's something else for Dragon Con?
No, I'm just. It's going to be fun to be back in a movie theater in December, watching Lord of the Ringsy things. So
with all of you and with all of our friends, it's going to be so much fun.
How long before 4DX does incredible programming for War of the Rohirrim?
Yeah,
we'll wait. We'll have to wait and see.
I'm ready for that. So I thought today a lot of channels on the interwebs have been doing season 1 recaps.
Yes.
In fact, Nerd of the Rings did a 12-minute recap. There's been several other YouTube channels
that was really well done. Really well done.
And blogs catching you up. And even at the live stream premiere last week on TikTok, they asked during the live stream premiere, they asked every actor that came up to the mic, tell us where your character was at the end of last season. So we don't have to relitigate the viewership completion percentages from last season, but there's a reason everybody's doing recaps of season 1. So
Yeah.
I want to ask you guys, when was the last time you watched Rings of Power season 1?
I started rewatching it a couple weeks ago. I haven't gotten all the way to the end yet, but getting ready for Dragon Con, trying to do that rewatch.
The last time that I saw it was last year.
Last year, you did a rewatch.
I
last year.
I have not done a rewatch this year.
But you watched it a year ago. I haven't watched it in 2 years. I watched it when it came out.
Yeah.
I watched it when it came out. So I thought maybe we can do our own recap here.
Here's my question for you then, Justin. Do you still think Isildur is dead?
I take the show at its word. At its word. I only report on what I see in front of me.
Funny.
And look, if Isildur dying in the first season is as much of a clean slate for storytelling as some of the other choices made with other characters and objects and things. So if they're going for the clean slate, they did it by killing Isildur. So I don't know.
Hey, Peter Jackson killed Aragorn after the Warg attack in the Two Towers. So, yeah.
All right.
But
well,
it only lasted 5 minutes. It only lasted 5 minutes that we thought Aragorn was
Here's what we're going to do. There's
Took
four
a little
main
tumble off the cliff.
There's 5 main storylines. And we've got a graphic up here. There's, the Southland storyline, the Harfoot storyline, the elves and dwarves storyline. There's the Numenor storyline, and then there's this Galadriel Sauron main story that is kind of. So I'd say there's 5 main storylines. So since it's been 2 years for me,
Where does Adar fit? Maybe there's 6 storylines.
He's in the Southlands. So
okay.
And it's been a year for Cliff, and Jim hasn't caught fully up on his rewatch. I thought we would put a timer on, put a number on the timer, and each of us choose a storyline to tell from memory from season 1. So I want a full recap of one of these storylines. How much time, Cliff, do you need to tell? Choose a storyline, Cliff, and tell me how much time do you need? 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes? What time? How much do you need on the clock?
So you know what? Just use a 2-minute timer. That's
okay.
When we're playing tabletop games with friends and they're taking too long to play their damn turn, we flip over the little sand hourglass and they get 2 minutes to finish their turn. That's how it is on game night. We're like that.
So
you gotta finish fast.
I'll let you guys choose first. I guess.
Okay.
Choose which one you want to recap.
Well, an easy storyline, I think, to recap would be the Harfoot storyline.
All right, Jim's got the Harfoots. Cliff?
Okay. I will recap the story, the quadrant in the upper right, which would be the elves of Linden and the dwarves. The elves and dwarves storyline in the upper right. I'll do that.
Okay. I'll do the Southlands and Adar. Who wants to cover Numenor?
I can try. Or Jim, do you want to try?
Sure. I mean, or it can be a team effort for all I care.
Okay, for the Numenor storyline.
Okay. Is the Dwarven storyline in there anywhere?
The Dwarven storyline is bundled up with the elves. The elves. Okay. It's called the Elf Dwarf storyline.
All right. Well, okay. Fair.
All right. So I'll go first.
All right.
So we're gonna let me go full screen here.
Oh my God, Susan, you're funny. Susan's in the chat being funny.
We're gonna do 2-minute recap. We're gonna do a 2-minute recap.
We have so many great people in the chat with us. The Wonder of Tolkien is here with us. Iravandi, our friends from Prancing Pony Podcast. Higgy Baby is here. Angel, Iravandi, and oh my gosh, there's Zap Verasepa, Finrod, Monica, Iravandi, Taffy. Everyone's here. You guys enjoy this. We're gonna have some fun. Let's have some fun. Now that you're all here,
2 minute
let's do it.
recap. 2 minute recap. I'm going to go
recap.
first of the Southland storyline. So, here we go.
Okay.
3, 2, 1. All right, Rings of Power Season 1. The Southlands is a place where humans live and elves keep watch. But elves don't trust the humans because they have a whole history that is never described. So a bunch of orcs start digging tunnels all over the Southlands, and they start raiding different towns in the Southlands, and nobody knows why. It's kept a mystery for half the season, actually most of the season, and no one believes that there's actually orcs in town until the main girl, who's there at the left, on the top left, she kills one in her house, which is an awesome fight scene. Is actually one of the coolest scenes in the entire series so far. And she has to behead an orc and take it to the townfolk for them to believe her. So they're like, all right, what do we do? Like, we got to figure this out. So what we find out is the tunnels are being dug by orcs led by a former elf slowly morphing into an orc named Adar or something like that. And in the marketing, we were thought to believe that that was going to be Sauron. But no, Adar is the big bad the whole season. And he's controlling all the orcs, and all he wants is... It turns out all he wants is a place for his orcs to live because they can't deal with sunlight. But they don't really quite explain it that well. Oh, 40 seconds. So what happens is the orcs keep attacking the humans keep defending. The orcs attack again. And in one of the battles, a magic sword is found, and the kid's blood activates the magic sword. But then the sword is stolen by the old man in the town, and he takes the sword and he bleeds himself, and the sword becomes big, and then the sword is actually a key. It's not a sword, and he puts a key into the ground like a sword in the stone, but in reverse, and it breaks a dam, and the water comes flowing down from a dam, and the water somehow goes uphill into the mountain, and we were never told about the mountain. And then the Mount Doom explodes, and then
time's
boom.
And the mountain explodes. Wild. That's so funny. That is really funny.
And then one last addendum is they end this storyline with text on screen with the word Southland that fades into the word Mordor, and we never use a lower third ever again, and we never see text on screen ever again. So it's all right. That was hard.
Are funny.
That was
you
hard.
Are funny.
It was that was two minutes. So who wants to go next?
That was a lot to cover.
That's hilarious.
The Harfoots is easier.
All right, you want to go next?
Sure, I'll go next because the Harfoots is just the story about Nori and her good friend Poppy, who are two young hobbit proto Harfoots, who happen to discover this comet man who lands in a big crater that's fiery but not hot. And it's just the whole story of them trying to figure out who the heck this guy is. And because he doesn't know who he is. And so the entirety of the storyline is avoiding everybody else, going on long journeys with very limited technology, led by an old sage, Sadok Harfoot, or Sadok Burrows, who dies. Intersecting with that story is the stranger trying to figure out who he is, flashes of his power, and these acolyte, strange witch-type creatures who think this guy might be Sauron, just like we think he might be Sauron all along. But it turns out he's not. He's an Istari, an unnamed wizard who, by the end of this storyline, at the death of Sadok Burrows, figures out, I need to go to Rune, because he sees stars and kills fireflies to see them. And so he decides to take this one young hobbit, and that's where we leave it, or Harfoot, Nori, decide that they're going to head out east to a part of Middle Earth that we have never seen before. And off they go, and presumably Poppy follows them along the way or gets incorporated into their story somehow. And that's pretty much it. That's that's where we leave.
Well, there you go. 22 seconds left on the clock. Is there anything of
Any
note?
questions?
Anything of note? I'll give you the extra 22 seconds. Is there anything of note that made that special?
And yeah, it's a very rustic kind of society, and maybe you can start to see some of the early threads, but they are certainly not domesticated and settled like normal hobbits would be. But they like being off by themselves, and they're good at hiding.
Totally migratory people.
A naturalistic magic about them.
And that is time. That is time. All right.
There you go.
Good work, man. That was much easier than me. All right, Cliff.
All right.
Elves and dwarves. Are you ready? 3,
Yep,
2,
I'm ready.
1, go.
Probably the most satisfying part of this many-legged narrative, and there are many legs on this table, but this is the strongest leg holding up the table, and it's the relationship between the elves and the dwarves. And we learn a lot about the High King. Well, we learn a little bit about the High King in Gilgalad in Lindon. We are introduced to the fact that the elves want to get some help from the dwarves. And what do they want to get help with? Celebrimbor wants to get help from the dwarves to build something large, to create some big thing. And Elrond goes to meet his old friend. And he goes to the gate, the West Gate of Moria, where it is not the familiar West Gate that we've seen in the Fellowship of the Ring. It's just a tiny little nondescript door on the side of the mountain. Then we go inside Khazad-dûm, and we see the best part of Rings of Power Season 1. We have this amazing relationship between Prince Durin IV and his wife Disa, and their friendship with Elrond, which reveals some of the most emotional and satisfying beats of the story. You might not have seen a lot of American television in your time, but maybe you have. And they use the oldest trope in episodic television writing, the elevator gimmick. And they use it in Middle-earth in a brilliant, brilliant way. This is a moment in an episode of television where the writers are like, we need to isolate characters so they can have a conversation. What do? You stick them in an elevator and let the two characters talk it out. They do this on this amazing lift, a lift because we see that Khazad-dûm is flourishing in its bounty, in its economic power, in its cultural power. Khazad-dûm is not the dark, horrible pit of Moria. Oh, time is up. Wow. You're going to have to give me a few more seconds here, okay? So, I'm not doing this in 2 minutes. We're going to have to give me some extra time here, Justin.
2 minutes is all you got. It's all right.
2
We're
minutes is
moving
all I
on
got.
to Numenor. I'm going to take a crack at Numenor because it wasn't even in the first 2 episodes. So I have 2 hours that I don't have to cover because it wasn't even in those episodes. All right, here we go. The season 1 recap of the Numenor storyline in 2 minutes. All right, on episode 3, a big ship shows up and finds Galadriel and this normal guy Halbrand adrift on a raft, and so they pick up these 2 strays in the middle of the ocean and they take them back home. Why? We don't know. We're not told where we're going, and we don't know why Numenor is supposed to be impressive or anything like that. We just know that a ship captain picked him up and brought him into port, and then so we get there and Galadriel is just wearing her underwear because she jumped off a boat. So she's in her white underwear, but it's all dirty and stuff like that. So of course they bring her in front of the queen because the king is almost dying. So the queen or the queen regent Muriel is like, I don't like the cut of your jib. I'm going to throw you in jail. But the normal average dude, you're cool. You can hang out. So the normal average dude goes and hangs out with normal Numenorian men. Well, as men do, he goes to the pub and he gets drunk and he sees other people and he gets into a fight because dudes are going to do. dude, right? So Halbrand beats them all up, and then he gets put in jail, and then they form a bond in jail, and like, oh my gosh, and she's like, oh wait, you're not just a guy, you're a king. I think you're a king. What's in your pouch? You won't tell me? Okay, well, I think you're a king, so I'm going to make you a king. So Galadriel finds a way to sneak out, and they go talk to the queen, and the queen's like, and he's like, hey, I found a king. There's a king right here. You should send us back to Middle Earth on your boat. By the way, bring an army with you, because a king needs an army, doesn't he? He can't be a king if he doesn't have an army, and we don't know where we're walking into, but we don't know why we need an army, but we need an army anyway. So Galadriel and Halbrand convince Numenor to send an army, and who knows how they get so many horses on ships, so they sail across the sea, and they get in a big fight, and Muriel is blinded, and Halbrand dies, but he doesn't die, and then the story changes, and they go back to Numenor, and everybody's mad, and the elves are taking their jobs, and they're really mad, and it was the worst dialogue in the entire series.
Wow.
Well,
okay. All right.
we got one more storyline. Sauron. Does anyone want to take a crack? Who wants to take a crack at Sauron storyline?
The Sauron storyline.
Already been threading it into this, because that's that storyline is the arc which we are going to pick up here in season 2.
Yes.
Because the whole season 1 was a mystery box. Who is Sauron? Is it these acolyte type people? Is it Adar? Is it the stranger? Is it Halbrand? Is it someone we haven't even seen yet before? And that Sauron Galadriel storyline, which you wove into both the Numenor storyline and the Elves Dwarves storyline, because it kind of intersects, is really at the core.
Well, I would hope it's at the core, because the show is called The Lord of the Rings, and there is only one Lord of the Rings, and it's called The Rings of Power, and the Rings of Power were made and distributed by one guy. So he is literally the title character.
There you are.
So, all right, well, give us a full recap of the Sauron Galadriel storyline, Jim. I'm going to count you down in 3, 2,
Jim, are you ready?
1.
I don't know. They meet on a boat, and they end up saving one another's lives. And Sauron, who we don't know he's Sauron yet, Halbrand, ingratiates himself and builds hard trust over the course of their relationship building. They end up in Numenor, and it looks like they're going to be partners, but then Halbrand tries to also gain trust with a local Numenorian power political structure and gives up Galadriel, and outs her as trying to get her own ship, and visiting Muriel and our Palantir, Muriel's father. So whatever it is, Halbrand is this very ambiguous character, and we're constantly asking, is this guy the king of the Southland? Is he something else? What was he doing on the boat? Why did he give up, all of his fellow boat companions to a sea monster of some kind? He ends up back in the Southlands again. It seems like everyone is celebrating his arrival, and he actually spends some time in Eregion, and he has smith working skills, and he's trying to be helpful, and then Galadriel stops trusting him, doesn't know who he is quite at some point. But and then, like you picked up with the Southland storyline, he ends up in the Southlands when the volcano erupts, and he has a bad relationship and history, apparently, and almost kills Adar, and Galadriel stops him. So there's this weird, ambiguous relationship until we finally start realizing, and in the final episode, it is confirmed that this Halbrand guy is Sauron, because his eyes look like flames, and he's pretty happy to see Mount Doom explode again, which is kind of where we leave him. So how does he get back into making, the Rings of Power business?
There you go. Nice.
All
job.
right.
Nice job.
Great.
I mean, in my 2 minutes, I didn't even get to mention the entire Mithril subplot and the difficult relationship that the Prince Durin has with his father. I didn't get to cover all that stuff, but you got it. You actually got Jim, you got it.
It was
Nice
that
job.
because it was that convoluted and complicated and disgusting and disapproval, and nobody liked half that stuff and everybody loved the other half. I would
I
just
was
say.
If you're half.
what? No, I'm so completely in love with the Khazad Dûm storyline and the relationship between Elrond and Durin and their family. And there's going to be so many good. They planted a lot of seeds in
Yeah.
season one, and we're going to see them come forth as they spring forth from the ground in season two. So it's going to be really cool.
Speaking
All
of
that stuff.
planted seeds in season one,
Ooh, yes. I
one of
saw
my
this earlier today.
favorite seed planting is Haladriel. It's Halbrand and Galadriel hooking up, and he offers her a hand in marriage and to be his queen at the end. I don't know how any of you can debate me that an implied relationship is more than just implied there. There's an actual shot of Queen Galadriel with her crown standing next to King Sauron. Like,
Yep.
that's a literal visual. Well, according to a new video today, Helen Shang, writer on Rings of Power, says, if I remember correctly, not only was Jennifer Hutchinson right, she correctly guessed what the relationship name would be too by the fans. So let's click through to this clip.
An executive producer on the first two seasons. Jennifer Hutchison, an executive producer on the first two seasons, writer on the show, she said, everyone's going to ship these two. We're like, that's crazy. They're enemies. What are you talking about? So, Jenny, you were right. Jennifer Hutchison, an executive producer on the first two seasons, writer on the show, she said, everyone's going to ship these two. We're like, that's crazy. They're enemies. What are you talking about? So, Jenny, you were right. Jennifer Hutchison.
Jenny,
That was one of the, yeah, that was one
You
of the
were
questions at the panel, the one at the Rings of Power panel in Hall H at San Diego Comic-Con. Somebody toward the very end says, "Are we going to get to see, sexy Sauron and Galadriel continue in this hot relationship that they apparently have?" And the showrunners kind of implied that we would in some fashion. When Galadriel says to Frodo, when he offers her the One Ring, she says, long have I desired this. And so there is in Galadriel this kind of motivation towards the same kind of power and control that ultimately, not only has consumed, but was created by Sauron. And because she resists it, Tolkien says in his letters, that was the point of her redemption. That's what earned her a ticket back to the Undying Lands, not what Gil-galad was trying to foist off on her. She wasn't ready. She wasn't redeemed enough yet. So that idea of interplay between evil and control, the same thing that Gandalf rejects when he says, "Don't tempt me with that ring. I'm the wrong guy for it." Galadriel was similarly tempted. So there is some canonical sense. I'm not sure I'm loving that as a sort of romantic interest, as a power interest. There is.
Yes, let's super clarify that, the fans have shipped the two characters Haladriel, right? And that's that's what she's saying on the tweet right there, that Jennifer actually guessed the name of the fan ship was going to be, the combination of Halbrand and Galadriel as a term. And
It
that
was going to be Galbrand. So
Galbrand. Yeah, it couldn't be Galbrand. It had to be Haladriel, right? So it's not a romantic narrative. It is a power narrative. Thank you for that distinction, everybody. Yay. How about that?
I don't believe you.
Justin,
I
it's
don't
not a
believe you. Well, I'm not going to play the clip again because I respect my audience, but since you weren't here last week, I found a clip of Morfydd Clark in an interview at the premiere. And the question posed to her was, what are you most looking forward to fans seeing in season 2? And Morfydd took a pause and says, there is a kiss and I can't wait for everybody to see it.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness gracious. Well, maybe it will be her missing husband, Celeborn. Ha
That
ha.
that would
Maybe
be better.
maybe she gets to kiss her missing husband, Celeborn. Yay.
I don't know. There was a mischievous look about her when she says it.
And she was doing this at a red carpet arrival interview where she said this?
She was at the world premiere. Yes.
Wow. Yeah, okay. Do you know what? I am the
Yeah,
first reporter.
if you don't
I was the
believe
first
me,
reporter
here,
to
here,
interview
here.
her.
Listen to
I was
this.
the first reporter to
Welcome back to
interview
season
her.
2 of Rings of Power.
Thank you.
We obviously we know that there's a lot going to happen. It's going to be a darker season. Can you please tease us, without giving too much away, which I know is hard, a moment, a scene, an episode which you are most excited for fans to see, and how was it to shoot said scene?
I've been asked this sneaky question before, and it really got me. And
Good one, isn't it?
yeah, I would say that there is a kiss that surprised me, and that's it.
Can't give it
Sorry.
more away, can we?
I can't, but I'm really excited for everyone to see it.
How was your experience of shooting?
I was the first person to ask her in the room, first words out of my mouth during the
Yeah,
interview.
we know. You said
Where's your
that.
husband? No, I didn't finish my sentence. I didn't finish my sentence because you played the video. Where is your husband? And nobody else in the worldwide press corps 2 years ago
is that
asked
smile,
her that question.
Is
Nobody
that
asked her that.
smile
But I asked her 2
Celeborn
years
smile?
ago.
Is that smile a Celeborn smile, or is that smile a Sauron smile?
That is I kissed my missing husband, Celeborn smile. That's what that is. I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know.
All right, that's not my read
but-
on it, but that's why we love this show.
She is being quite mischievous, and she's trying to smile through that mischief, and it's really cute. So we'll have to see. We have to wait and see.
Maybe she kisses Bombadil. No.
Oh, okay.
You know, I've been listening to the music from season 2.
Mm-hmm.
There's
so
the Tom
good.
Bombadil song. Bombadil and the Stranger sing that song together at some point in the season.
Wow.
And there's even a Goldberry cut.
Yes, there's a Goldberry track.
So does that mean we're going to see either an illusion, flashback, some way? Are we going to see Goldberry?
Ooh,
This is-
exciting.
That's great. All right. Other thing, there's been so many articles and interviews and videos being posted. I mean, they're kind of over marketing this thing, in my opinion. But in today's Hollywood Reporter, the showrunners McPain say there are many. Wow, what happened there? There are many shows I love that in their first season that were still honing the tone and rhythm and the characters and the voices. Even on The Sopranos, which is possibly the best television drama of the last 25 years. That's part of starting off a big, ambitious show. Part of the first season is trying to find your lane.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
That's absolutely right. Go back and watch the first season of Star Trek: The Next Generation. It's awful.
Yeah, a good show usually only picks up by season 3.
Yep.
So
I
there
mean,
you go.
it's good in its own way, but compared to, when things settle in and we know these characters,
Mm-hmm.
and we don't have to invest in so much exposition or so much of the mystery boxing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. They go on to say, we previously worked with Charlotte Brandstrom and her DP Alex Dizenhoff on episodes 6 and 7, which are our favorite episodes from season 1. We really found the tone of the show in those episodes. They're more grounded, they're grittier, they're more dramatic, they're very emotional. This is interesting, Cliff. I mean, as a Hollywood guy, they're kind of saying out here that episode 6 and 7 is kind of the actual pilot of the whole series, where you've nailed down the tone, the pilot, or the tone, the drama, the emotion, the like they say that, like right here in that sentence. The interesting thing about 6 and 7, and that's the volcano episodes. Is Digital Tolkien just put these up? I think of these. This is the amount of words spoken per episode.
Yes, and episode 6 and 7 have the most action. It's the most action oriented, and they have less spoken dialogue scenes.
Interesting insight here from McPain, admitting that their favorite episodes and the ones that they feel are the most adhere to their vision and the vision going forward happens to be the episodes with the least amount of dialogue.
Well, I mean, it's a classic show don't tell, especially in a visual medium. But, you know, even readers of the books. I mean, how many people get bogged down and never make it past the Council of Elrond in the books? Because there's so much telling. There's so much exposition going on.
Yeah, totally. And I think
yes,
Peter Jackson did a great job showing, not telling, in his movies. You know, you see a glimpse of what the Aragorn's ring of Barahir. Is that right?
Yep.
In one fleeting moment. There's so much for fans of Lord of the Rings books. They know what that ring means.
Right.
And they don't explain it. They just show it.
Yeah, which was, you know, so I don't know what episode it was, but when we're in the Tower of Tar Palantir, and all of a sudden we see Anduril like leaning up against the wall. Let alone some of the other Silmarillion era artifacts.
yes.
And then all of a sudden, those of us who are deeply into that kind of a lore are going nuts. And you don't have to say a word about them. It's like, did you see? So.
Yeah. So,
Well,
so there's go ahead.
Does this indicate that that they also realized as writers that they had to have the difficulty of the upfront exposition early in the season, and they got into their groove later in the season? This is probably a common burden among many first season sci-fi and fantasy shows. I would say it's a common pattern.
Yeah, and even you know, there are some shows, you know, like back to Star Trek. Everybody's on the same ship, and we're going to get backstories on individual characters, but we're on the same ship. But like Justin's first graphic and our little 2-minute recaps,
Yes.
where we've got to tell 5 or 6 independent stories because they really haven't integrated yet, but they're all heading toward that integration. And so now season 2, we're going to have Arondir hanging out and rescuing Isildur. And we're going to have Galadriel having a conversation with Adar. And Anatar Sauron is going to show up, I guess, and be unrecognizable. A little hard to tell how that's working, but all of a sudden he's going to be deeply invested in his whole relationship with Celebrimbor.
Yes.
He's not Southlands anymore. And so I'm not sure how we're going to pull in that Harfoot storyline because they're off in Rune. And yet we've got Bombadil on the borders of the later Shire showing up in Rune. And so these threads are trying to come together.
Oh, and don't forget the ghost things, the skull ghost.
Oh yeah,
things.
the Barrow-wites. So
yeah.
There's a lot going on, but I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued by season going to season 2. I thought
I am very intrigued as well. Yes.
The other thing that I appreciate all of our fans in Discord and the community is I asked the fans this weekend, what is your review of season 1? I want to maybe in this next segment capture the moment in time right now. Like we're gonna go see the new season starting tomorrow, right? This is our last moment in time to capture our true feelings of season 1. And so before I go to you guys on the panel, let me just share some of what some of our fans said on Discord. First off, this is the review that we gave, Torn Tuesday gave last at the end of the season, and not just Torn Tuesday. We had the entire staff that were available to chime in, and we graded all the different parts of the show.
Yes, we did.
In these different categories. So the overall production we gave a B. Everything looked, you see the $1 billion budget on screen and you hear it. It's fantastic. But there were some critical issues with the pacing and the writing and the fidelity to Tolkien that brought it down. Cliff, do you still stand by this grade?
Actually, I think it would be more useful to grade season 1 over again after we see season 2.
Well, that's why I want to snapshot this right now, because we will.
Okay, good. Then excellent. Okay, excellent approach. Yes, this report card actually stands as a rather reasonable thing, but I would change the pacing to not a C minus, but I would change the pacing to a B minus. I would upgrade that from C minus to B minus because, and that's a full letter upgrade. And the pacing doesn't bother me the way that slower or more deliberate paced narrative bothers some people. You can sit me into a foreign film, and I will go as slow as molasses with that filmmaker and their style and their approach, if that's the way they're making the film. I mean, look, when I look at these old Kurosawa
we understand.
films,
You're willing to sit through, but I think we arrived at this pacing grade.
I'm very patient with storytelling. I am. I'm very patient with it.
The feeling I get from the show and why I would keep this grade is I think the goals of the filmmakers did not match the execution. And based on that Hollywood Reporter comment we just highlighted, where they said episode 6 and 7 is their favorite.
Yeah.
I think that proves my point that they really do want, as filmmakers and storytellers, they want that fast-paced storytelling of episode 6 and 7. But taken on a whole, where you have most of the rest of the season operating at molasses, I don't think it worked because that's not their storytelling style. So it was a disconnect between the execution and the creative intent. So I maintain this grade. All right, but let's see what a few friends in our chat room said. Let's see here, site posts. Here's one from Blaubeer. Season 1 set the plate well. I enjoyed it. It's a little slow paced, and it's too bad the plot didn't really move any canonical stories from the source material forward. I don't love that it leaned into Who's Sauron mystery boxes so much. The casting is great, and I think all the aesthetic technical critiques are wrong. Season 2 is a success if it feels like we are getting a real Second Age stories instead of just build-up. Do you guys agree with that, Jim?
Yep, that's a very succinct way of putting it, and I'm in alignment with that.
I get the critique, and I felt the critique. The mystery boxing thing, who is Sauron, kind of a deal. At the same time, if you think about the canon and the fact that canon is not time compressed, unlike this show is. Where did Sauron go for 1,000 years after Morgoth gets tossed into the void at the end of the First Age? So the idea that Sauron licks his wounds, toys with possible repentance, and ultimately decides he's going to out Morgoth, that's a slow boil kind of a story. And the same thing is going to happen at the end of the Second Age.
Yeah.
So
Well,
you know, when Isildur cuts his ring off, where does Sauron go? He spends thousands of years licking his wounds, and then finally declares himself toward the end of the Third Age and goes back to Mordor. So,
well,
it's a Sauron thing.
I agree with you, but to your point, this person says the plot didn't really move any canonical stories from the source material forward. And I think what you just described is a canonical story from the source material, and and bringing it back to what Cliff just said, I think we would have been okay as fans with a slow as molasses pacing if it was moving forward a story that we're familiar with. But that didn't happen. So I really like this one. All right, next. Control in the chat room says, overall, I enjoyed it. Probably a 7 out of 10. My biggest gripe was the Mithril plotline and how silly that came across. I don't think that they executed it well enough to make it palatable. Again, a comment on the execution. I think the season had some pacing issues as well, especially with the Harfoot storyline taking up a lot of space. I'm still not sure about the Sauron Galadriel temptation scene either. It was a cool scene, but maybe it came across as a bit too spiritual. I also wish they devoted more time to the 3 rings being forged instead of cramming it into the final episode. But side note, in all of our 2-minute recaps, none of us mentioned the creation of the rings.
Well, it came at the very end. Who was doing the elves? That was up to you.
Me? I didn't. I didn't get 2 minutes worth of information out. I just didn't get it done. I'm sorry.
He says favorite parts were Numenor, the prologue, and everything involved Elrond and Durin. Galadriel was cool too, but probably could have benefited a little bit from a better script writing. I enjoyed Charlie Vickers as Halbrand and thought it was an interesting way to explore what Tolkien hinted at when he discussed Sauron right at the end of the First Age. Of course, the VFX special effects were amazing. I think this guy kind of falls in line with what you were just saying, Jim, which is there's a story to be told with Sauron.
Well, that was probably the exploration of making orcs and Adar and Sauron more than just a facade of evil, but actually working on trying to give them motivations that are understandable. They might not be admirable. They might even still be contemptible, but they're understandable and they're multifaceted. So yeah, I think most of the fans that reacted to the Adar, Joseph Malik characterization of him were really positive about what he brought to that role. And so Sam Hazeldine is going to have his work cut out for him. I hear the rumors are he's doing a great job, but it's a pivotal kind of a role to see how he plays it. You know, and it's trying to answer the story, where do orcs come from? Which was a storyline that Tolkien himself was a bit ambiguous about for all of his life. So
the next one, Aiden DeBoy is a regular for the last couple years in our Discord. He's in there, she's in there, they are in there daily. And they gave it 5 out of 10. 5 out of 10. Wow. Pacing was very bad at times, especially dragging out Numenor for longer than it needed, with not enough content in there to justify it. I agree. Episode 7 was essentially just a wasted penultimate episode where nothing happened, and they should have extended the forging into it so as not to feel so rushed. Harfoot soaked up too much screen time. Some of the performances and deliveries weren't up to scratch. Lots of dialogue didn't make sense or fell flat. Smithrill, laughing emoji. Did enjoy Elrond and the dwarves. Liked Elendil and company. Galadriel was a poor protagonist who you struggled to root for. Sauron reveal was cool. Visuals and music was good, but the music was a little too epic for what was happening at the time. Overall, not enough happening and weird decisions throughout, but big potential to improve going into this season. Cliff, this is the first comment on music. I think everybody agrees the music's fantastic, but one of my critiques at the end of season 1 in our review was I felt the music was too overwhelming. The music was doing too much heavy lifting, and it was too heavy, and it's almost like Bear didn't know when to back off and just let the characters breathe and the dialogue breathe, but instead every word.
I do not share that assessment at all.
Interesting.
At all. No. In fact, the contributions of Bear's music and his deliberate approach, much like his predecessor, Oscar winner Howard Shore, but Bear's deliberate approach to elevate very specific character lines and narrative threads with distinct leitmotifs that are recurrent, but then become different arrangements layered into one another at different points in the story, is a brilliant approach. Nothing about Bear McCreary's music was bombastic, over-pressing, over-pressured, over the top. Nothing. To me, it was one of the main things that highly, highly elevated the whole overall sensibilities of the first season was Bear McCreary.
Right, I'll allow it. Moving on.
Thank you very much.
7.4.
The one thing I'll say about Bear, though, the more that I read post that second season about what he was doing is fascinating. So, as an example, the fact that the Sauron theme and the Halbrand theme are the same theme but reversed. So that guy is layering in Easter eggs and hints throughout.
Absolutely.
And he said, I'm having to work a lot harder to integrate that kind of creativity into this next season because people are watching for it much more meticulously than they were in the first season. So he set himself up an even more challenging second season as he goes forward. So I have all kinds of respect for what he's doing. It's Wagnerian.
That's awesome.
Yes. Yeah, thank you, Wagnerian. Great word. Thank you, Jim.
One Trick Rick says 7.4 for me. When it shined, it really shined. Wandering Days, Elrond talking about him missing his father, Galadriel and Isil talking on the boat, anything with Adar, all of episode 6, Elrond and Durin were highlights for me. Harfoots took up way too much time. Numenor looked glorious and off at the same time. I agree with that. Cheap tricks to keep mystery up throughout the season. Bizarre dialogue more than I'd like. Really like the Sauron reveal, though, honestly, and I am extremely stoked for season 2. Cliff, this is... many people say that they loved the Sauron reveal. Cliff, do you think you and I were poisoned at the well because we knew years in advance?
We knew many years in advance about the Sauron secret and surprise reveal.
Do you think that affected your impression on the show?
It might have. Yes, it's possible. But my natural bias is not against the show. My natural bias is towards the storytelling style of Professor Tolkien. All right? So there is not necessarily, an exclusive state where it has to be separate. I would have preferred that the mystery boxing be completely traded out for the use of standard dramatic irony. That's obviously a preference that I've mentioned many, many, many times on Torn Tuesday over the years. And that's okay, it's fine. But, what was more difficult to process was how much Galadriel was intellectually and emotionally fooled by someone who should not have fooled her that way. And that's the biggest foundational building block of what they wanted in season 1 was that Galadriel would be brought to a point of being fooled, almost. Well, in fact, yes. The answer was yes. She brought Halbrand into Eregion, and I
saved his
I would have
from his mortal injuries.
And you know what? Honestly, it was all a clever plot, and I can't figure out how Sauron maneuvered a shipwreck with other individuals and a sea monster to be at exactly that remote speck in the middle of the bloody ocean where Galadriel, just by happenstance, happened to be. I don't know quite how Sauron figured out how to do that, I'm talking mechanics.
You'll
The
find out
mechanics
on
of how
you'll find
it
out this
worked.
Thursday when he
I guess
explains
we'll
how
find
he's
out.
there.
I don't know.
Yeah. No,
All
you're
right,
right.
Moving
right.
on,
I
Nutmeg
don't know,
28
but-
says she gives it somewhere around 6 or 7 out of 10. I think they juggled too many storylines, and that just threw off the pacing of the whole season, especially with only 8 episodes. Dialogue was subpar. However, the good moments show the potential is there. I just hope they learned the lesson from season 1. According to people that were at the premiere last week, they have learned the lesson of what she says specifically. The first 2 episodes are only 2 storylines.
Okay.
So
that's keeping things in much more focused, laser sharp focus for getting where they want to go with the story. Okay.
Kweko Pep says, after 2 years savoring it throughout multiple rewatches and discovering new layers and details each time, thanks to the wonderful fandom that has given me more understanding of things, I would say 9 out of 10. If at some point I had doubts about some plot lines, reading other people's insights was enlightening. Also, I tend to stay positive and I see the goodness in things. If seasons approve, I will have to give a 0.25 extra each season.
Anonymous girl in the chat says, I didn't want Halbrand to be Sauron at first because I was hoping he'd be the Witch King of Angmar. However, seeing Charlie Vickers' execution was stunning. It's a great point.
Awesome.
Charlie Vickers, he really did elevate the proceedings as Halbrand. He really did.
Soranume says, 8 out of 10. Pacing was absolutely the biggest issue for me. Once again with the pacing. I don't mind the Harfoots, but so many of their scenes did not progress their own plot efficiently and ended up feeling useless and taking time away from other storylines. I think the showrunners struggled compressing the 10 episodes into 8. That is confirmed, not just a rumor. The original plan and the original scripts were 10 episodes. Then at some point they cut it down to 8 for season 1. And I think it sacrificed some of the more important scenes for unnecessary ones which hurt the pacing. However, so many moments throughout the show felt very Tolkien at their core. And I think that makes up for some of my grievances. They clearly understand the underlying themes, and that is so important. I like Halbrand being Sauron more than most. I think it will add a lot to the depth of Anatar's Celebrimbor storyline that we wouldn't have got had we led with that in season 1. I think Galadriel is a fascinating protagonist, and though sometimes it can be hard to root for her, there is clearly a progression she will go on, and I think it will be all the more satisfying for it. Jim, do you agree with that? That moments throughout the show felt very Tolkien at their core?
Yes, I do. And that's where I actually will defend the Harfoot storyline a little bit. I mean, talk to people who have tried to read the books and can't. And one of the critiques you will almost always hear is, when is this story going to get started? We are spending all kinds of time in the Shire. So I've had enough of the Hobbit stuff. So the places for me where that is most true is where the epic is made intimate. The reason why we love the Elrond and the Durandisa story is because we see a window on intimacy between a dwarf husband and wife, intimacy between a friend. Even the pushback on the elevator ride that we get says, where were you? It was a violation of this relationship that we have. And so I would say on the Galadriel Halbrand storyline, the reason why people are shipping them is because they like that intimacy thing. Tolkien figured that out the minute that he said, in a hole in the ground there lived a hobbit. And all of a sudden, this epic Silmarillion stuff turned into a story that people wanted to read. And I think that that's the same thing that's happening. So for me, it's why the Numenor storyline was less satisfying, because we haven't had the real moments of intimacy yet. It's just political maneuvering that's happening. You get some of this friendship stuff, but then they start slapping one another around. So we saw some of it. It's going to be interesting to see how season 2 adjusts to the fact that we had Arondir and Bronway exploring that, and a little Theo in there, but now the actress who played Bronwyn is not in the show anymore, so I guess she's going to die, or I'm not sure what they're going to do with her. But back to the Harfoots, it's slow. It doesn't go anywhere, but neither does anybody in the Shire, except for a Baggins or two who goes out on an adventure, and we finally got a Harfoot or two off on an adventure. So maybe that's going to pick up some. But I get it, and I get the critique, but I also get the comfort food component of that epic made intimate that I think is successful at various places, and it's a lot of times where people are really enjoying the story.
I want a whole article or a 10-minute video of you talking about the intimacy thing. That is so fascinating, but we got to move on. All right, the last one here, Tea with Tolkien, who has watched the entire show 50 times, 50. She has put 50 times 8. How many? 4,000 hours? 8 times 5, 40. 4,000 hours.
Excellent.
Into Rings of Power.
Wowzer.
In fact, she made herself a sticker that says "official shill."
Oh yeah, I saw that.
So yeah, Tea with Tolkien. So you can go to teawithtolkien.com for her detailed insights. But in our Discord, she says, in my initial review, I gave it a 6.5 out of 10. Can you believe that, Cliff? A 6.5 from Tea with Tolkien.
That well, as a lot of people in the chat have said today, tea is always right. And I think that should be a brand new slogan for Caitlin going forward for the rest of her career. The tea is always right. But honestly, that is directly in alignment with Matt, Nerd of the Rings.
That's right. Well, she
that's
says
the same grade he gave.
When she went back and watched it 50 more times, and she made a whole spreadsheet and did a very methodical analysis of her review, it ended up being an 81%, 8 out of 10.
Oh,
then she graded the whole season by categories, and the lowest graded category was Tolkienian themes and cores at 63%. And all the others were between 70 and 90. And Bear score, of course, 100%. I asked her, should Tolkien themes weigh more in the overall? And she says, yes, they do. Every other category is weighted 10 points, but Tolkien themes is weighted 20. So that's interesting. Jim, can you reconcile your statement that you just made about Tolkien themes with this opinion where it's lacking in Tolkien themes?
Yeah, I can see it. I'd be interested to know what Caitlin and our Tea with Tolkien friend, how that progressed. If her assessment of the themes got stronger over time and over the many rewatchings. I know that was the case for me. I rewatched it pretty soon after the first season released, and I was actually reading some of Tolkien's letters and discovered this theme of decay that had become a very Tolkienian idea around what's going on with the elves. It's kind of laying on top, elves are not really immortal. Elves, over a very long period of time, do have this decay issue. And I don't get necessarily the mithril component of it, which was where we sort of took a detour off of, for me, what would be a Tolkienian core. But that notion of the elves clinging to memory and fighting decay is very Tolkien. And I appreciated that more upon the rewatching.
Okay.
So I don't know why Galadriel was on the boat. I don't know why she jumped off the boat. I would be really happy to find a plausible way to connect how in the world did Halbrand and Galadriel meet in the middle of the ocean and a sea monster thing. Don't know. I'm open to being schooled and being happier than I am about that. But so that's the kind of tension that I've had.
Okay. So it does get better with new watchings, and season 2 potentially could make season 1 even better show. And as we've been reporting for the last 2 years, the scripts were written at the same time for both seasons. 5 years ago in 2018 and 2019, scripts were written for season 1 and season 2. In all but release, this new season could also be considered season 1 part 2.
Interesting.
Since
Do you know if any of those 2 episodes that season 1 lost, is that blending into season 2 now?
those 2 episodes are supposedly these 2 episodes that we're seeing tomorrow night on the big screen.
Interesting.
Yeah. So it is an interesting, it's not a misnomer, but I think it's an interesting way to think about it, that it's season 1.5, the continuance of what would have been really all of season 1.
And finally, I just want to remind everybody, I wrote a review, not of the whole season, but of the premiere. The 2-part premiere. I went to 3 different cities to watch it. I saw it in LA, I saw it in New York, and I flew to London. I probably have seen Rings of Power on the big screen more than anyone else in the whole world, and then in the middle of the season, I went to a bunch of theatrical screenings here in LA during awards season when they were trying to get nominated for Emmys. I have seen probably 15 times on the big screen in the best way to see it. This was my review of the 2-part premiere directed by J.A. Bayona on August 31st, 2022. This was when the embargo ended and we could publish it. And of course, there's a picture from the New York premiere. There's a picture of me and Royd Tolkien in London. And there is Cliff and Corey Olsen and Matt Nerd of the Rings at the premiere. But my final thing, I still stand by this. Perfection, no notes. Hard to believe I said that in writing.
Is that why Tea with Tolkien gave you the no shill button?
Yeah. So that was that was my impression of the 2-part premiere of season 1. So I am most looking forward to season 2. I want to love the show. I want to be impressed by the show. And you think I've read the books like these guys have? I'm the most impressionable mind here. I'm going in with no expectations other than to entertain me. So that's exciting. We'll see where they happen. I've got my ticket to tomorrow's screening right here. Jim, are you seeing it tomorrow? Yeah?
Very nice. Exciting.
And then, of course, everybody else can watch it at Thursday. And our Discord, again, the enterprising folks on our Discord have put together this cheat sheet of when it launches in many of the popular cities around the world. That's right, folks. At 12 midnight on Thursday, 12:01 midnight in Los Angeles, in Denver, 1 a.m., Dallas, 2 a.m., New York, and the East Coast, 3 a.m., 8 a.m. in London, 9 a.m. in Joburg, Istanbul, 10 a.m., Dubai, 11, Singapore, 3, South Korea, 4, Sydney, Australia gets it at 5 p.m. on Thursday afternoon, and Wellington, New Zealand at 7 p.m. on Thursday.
The same time, we'll see it again at DragonCon. 7 p.m. Eastern Time.
Very nice indeed.
The cool thing about DragonCon is you're watching not just the first 2 episodes like everybody else. You're watching all 3 episodes on a big screen.
Real.
How cool. How very cool.
So that's exactly the time. So I have no idea what channels like Nerd of the Rings and others will be doing watch-alongs or when their reviews will be going up or anything like that, because, I don't know, 3 a.m. East Coast time is that's a heavy lift. Honestly, I don't know if I can even stay up at midnight here in Los Angeles. Cliff, will you be staying up at midnight to watch?
I often stay up until the wee hours of the morning playing board games with my friends, or staying out to the karaoke bars till 2 a.m, singing my heart out. So it is no problem for me to stay up till 3 a.m. No problem at all.
And we've been giving you so many leaks and spoilers, but we're not going to do that. The only thing I'm going to tell you right now is we have confirmation from Rings of Power Era, who is a reliable source on Twitter, parts of New Zealand will be seen in season 2.
Ta-da.
Yes.
Yeah, they did some great aerial photography while they were still in the country, and as well they should use that footage as much as they can.
They have 20 hours of aerial photography from shooting in New Zealand. That is confirmed by McPain, the showrunners. And I just want to remind everybody, they were shooting during pandemic when everybody was on lockdown. So they probably have the most pristine, empty landscapes anyone's ever shot of New Zealand, because because nobody was out of their house. Like, that was middle of lockdowns when they were shooting these landscapes. So we're still going to see the quality environment of New Zealand, and of course some of the great new stuff that is more closely associated with Tolkien's imagination, because they shot it all, or most of it, in England for season 2.
How about that?
Guys, this has been so much fun. Final thoughts going into season 2. What do you want out of it? What are you expecting? Or are you just here for the ride?
Well, Jim, you go first.
I want to see all these storylines start coming together. And I want it to resonate with Tolkien, because I am a book nerd. And to sustain the kind of quality that we've seen in some of these relationships and the music and the visuals, all those things that got A's and A pluses, and then the things that folks have flagged about pacing and writing. Some of the things that you said, Gus, I'm looking forward to seeing how this whole series matures as we head into the second season.
You didn't even mention.
Oh, there I am. Yeah.
You cosplayed as Tom Bombadil at Comic-Con, and you took a picture with the outfit of the actual Tom Bombadil.
Exactly. Exactly.
And I have nothing but a sense of relief now that we're no longer mystery boxing the main antagonist.
Yeah.
And I have a sense of that yoke being carried off of my shoulders, and now I can really appreciate all the other levels of storytelling that they're bringing. My enthusiasm is through the roof for season 2 of Rings of Power. My enthusiasm is really up there. There's going to be bad endings for some wonderful characters, and there's going to be we'll get some real tragedy, not just cute little hobbits running around having cute gardens and and spring parties and all that stuff. We're really going to get into some nitty-gritty stuff.
Yep, it's going to be dark this season. You're right.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to, with enthusiasm, where we go with Sauron establishing the larger network of his schemes of giving rings to people who are leaders, important leaders of different races of dwarves and men. And I wonder, I'm looking forward to all this stuff, especially the Kieran Hines reveal, and especially the character of Círdan the shipwright. And sprinkling in a really unexpected anachronistic character like Tom Bombadil is just fun, super fun, and I'm looking forward to having a really good time with all this.
My advice for everybody watching tonight and preparing to watch it tomorrow night and Thursday is, remember, this is a TV show. This is an adaptation. This isn't a documentary of the book that Tolkien wrote, because he didn't write the book. He made a bunch of notes that Christopher published in a bunch of, books. This is an original story based on the writings of Tolkien. So if you go in with that perspective of, this is just an original story with some original characters and some familiar ones and some new ones that you've never seen on screen, Just go along for the ride and have a good time. Not all the answers are going to be answered immediately, but I think they're going to get there. And I think we're all going to have a lot of fun if we just enjoy the ride. And I think it's okay. I think we've all learned over the last 2 years as a fandom, it's okay to not like all or part of the show. And it's okay to love all or part of the show. And as we close here, I just want to, I'm looking at all the other franchise TV shows and the discourse around it. And I want people here to not criticize other fans for loving it and not criticize other fans for hating it. We're here to all enjoy it on our own terms, because that's what television is. It's watching a show with yourself, maybe your family, but, you know, with the 3 a.m. Release time in New York, you're not having sleepovers with your friends. You're watching this on your own device. And so this show is a relationship between...
Might be. It's New York. It never sleeps.
Well, and it's Dragon Con, and we just said it's a 24-hour party. But you get what I'm saying. It's like, as a fandom, we're going to be respectful of people that if there is a Haladriel kiss, we're going to love it, and we're going to hate it, and we're going to respect people who love or hate it. I'm not saying that it's there. If the answer, if the mystery box answers around the stranger are not answered immediately, we're going to love it, and we're going to hate it. But we're not going to criticize other fans, because this fandom is respectable, and that's what I want out of everybody, to just have a good time, and let's enjoy this.
I think we're quite capable of that. There's a whole ecosystem here at theonering.net and on our Discord that we have carefully curated over decades, and that's a really comfortable and cool place, an environment where people can feel the way they want to feel about the show. It is never, ever built on diminishment towards other people or detraction towards other people. We don't do that around here. So thank you for saying that. Not that we live in a world where it needs to be said all the time, but maybe we do need to say this sometimes. So thank you, Justin, for that perspective. It's a really exciting time to be a Tolkien fan, just when you thought there's not, well, what else can they do? What else can they do? But there seems to be a surprising amount of more adaptations coming and new publications. Jim, you're going to actually give a remarkable little presentation about the collected 3-volume set, the hardcover edition of J.R.R. Tolkien's poetry. There's so much energetically happening in the world of literature, publications, academics, animation, live action, video games, tabletop games, you name it. The world of Tolkien fandom is incredibly vibrant right now. It's a fantastic time to be where we are. Really is.
Yep.
Jim, can you give us a sneak peek about the big poetry collection that you're going to mention?
Oh, because
it's so huge.
It is huge. It's a 3-volume set. It's longer than The Lord of the Rings. It's covering, I don't know, like 190 different poems. 60 at least of them are new.
Brand new.
Published before. And again, one of the first questions we'll ask in our panel is, how many of you skipped the poems? And I expect we'll at least have, because that's the way that we engage. And then the negative criticism over the years of Tolkien as poet has been very interesting, while at the same time, given the popularity of both The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings and the number of poems that are in them, he's probably one of the most widely distributed poets in history.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an interesting combination, and we'll have a good time talking about it.
Super cool. I wish you all the best, and please give my love and my best regards to Rebecca and to Kirsten. You guys are just going to have such a great weekend, and I'm feeling the FOMO. It's real. It's real FOMO right here.
We can get you back someday.
Next year. We have to come out there next year, right, Justin?
That's right. Well, that's it. Dragon Con is this week. We're going to see you next week with all of our opinions on the season 3-episode season premiere. And final note, I've just got confirmation during the show. The embargo for official critic reviews is up at 6 a.m. tomorrow. 6 a.m. Pacific, 9 a.m. Eastern. Everybody will start posting their official critic reviews. So if you be careful about spoilers starting tomorrow at 6 a.m. Pacific time, because that's when all the reviews for the premiere should be dropping from all of your favorite websites and film reviewers.
Super exciting.
Fun time.
Super duper exciting.
And as Cliff takes us out, I
stuff.
just noticed that Nerd
Great
of the
stuff.
Rings is live on YouTube right now, streaming the brand new Return to Moria update. So YouTube's got a new feature where
right.
I
That's
can
Just came out.
yeah, I'm gonna try this new feature and I hope it works. So if you're watching on YouTube, I'm going to press a button here, and when we end the show, it might kick you over to Matt's stream. So maybe I'll try to
How
jump
cool
on
is
my
that?
Xbox. So I don't know if it's going to work. This is a brand new technology, but supposedly I can raid. They call it raiding. We're going to raid his stream with everybody here. So take us out, Cliff.
Oh, super, super cool. I want to acknowledge everybody in the live chat. So many remarkable. That's right. That's right. Yes. Vixen, Dark Fairy, whole new poems that have never, ever, ever seen the light of day. And let us mention before we go that incredibly talented and erudite Tolkien scholars, Wayne G. Hammond and Christina Skull, who have put together some remarkable volumes on Professor Tolkien, are the ones putting this edition, this triple volume of poetry together. You're right. I'm looking at the chat right now saying, I acknowledge you guys. You're all beautiful. Thank you for being with us. And do take care of each other while you stay up till 3 a.m. or 4 or 6 a.m. watching The Rings of Power. I might have to change my schedule around, but I'm going to be up into the wee hours of the night, taking notes, writing. It's going to be so exciting. Wow. This has been a really great show. Justin, maybe next time I get a 2-minute egg timer, I might be able to make it through next time. We'll see if I can. But this was a miserable failure on my part today. I couldn't get the whole storyline out in 2 minutes. It was too much. Many blessings to you, Jim. Thank you for being with us. It's
Thanks.
great to have you here, Jim Ward, always. And to everyone out there in the world, thank you for supporting us and continuing after 25 years, continuing to be part of our little corner of the internet here at theonering.net. Look for us online on socials at The One Ring Net. Take out the dot. You can find me personally, Clifford Broadway, at QuickBeam2000 on Instagram and Twitter. And we will be back here next Tuesday at 5 p.m. Pacific time with all of our thoughts, all of our reviews, and a whole lot of energized conversation about the launch of Season 2 of The Rings of Power. We're here. This is happening. It's so awesome. Much love to my audience and to everybody being so supportive of us over all these years. Good night, everyone out there, and good luck. Or as I often like to say, buenas noches y buena suerte. Bye-bye, everybody.